Hi, my name's Lindy and welcome to the channel. And the second video I'm recording this evening is entitled Synchronicity, or the magic of synchronicity, or the beauty of synchronicity, but it's all about synchronicity. So the reason I'm inspired to bring this video out is it's not the first time I've spoke about synchronicity on this channel, and I've spoke about it several times but not actually done a video on it, apart from the one I brought out a few years back, or a year and a half back, called Sink or Swim. I called it, about synchronicity as well. Now the reason I've been inspired to bring this one out is because you can go through periods of your life that you don't see any synchronicity at all. And then you can go through other periods of it where there is one synchronistic thing after another. Now, in the periods of life where you're not getting any synchronicity at all, a lot of that really is when you're totally immersed in, let's say, everyday things. And some of those everyday things don't have to entirely be pleasant. Some of them are just survival things, really, that you have to do, and you're caught up with, let's say, modern day life. And it seems that when you are caught up in modern day life, that your frequency isn't really at its highest, shall we say, or its clearest, shall we say, or at its best, because you're having to get on with other more logical, you could even say more boring functional things. And I know that's part of being human and we all have to do it, but it's that balancing act again. If you have to do it all the time, then it sucks and it becomes very boring and dull, and so does your frequency, really. You can't help it. So it is beautiful when you suddenly get that really wonderful flow, that river, that flow of consciousness that you're suddenly aware of again, and you get synchronicity on all fronts. So I'm going to give you a lovely little story here, which I've already shared on social media, but which I'll expand on here. I had the opportunity on Friday to go along to a meetup in a local community hall, which was supposed to be like a talk or a sharing by someone that works in spirituality. Now, I didn't know anything about this person, but I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And when I got there, it was a very kind of like small, run-down, ramshackle community centre, which is fighting actually to stay open because people want to close it down. Very lovely energy inside it, actually, but a tiny little place on the outside. And only myself at that point had turned up, and there were two ladies running it, one of whom was there, and she was waiting for the other one to pick up the person that was going to do the talking, and one other. Now, it was open to people to come along, and I live in an area of the country which is absolutely appalling for trying to shut down by not supporting people that work spiritually. So it's a very, very heavy church going area, and I've heard this feedback continually since I've been down here, that there are people interested in coming along, but they are afraid of upsetting the members of the church or the church group. It's like medieval Britain all over again, really, you know, burnt at the stake for being spiritual, which is nothing to do with witchcraft. But this is a story I've heard repeatedly. So there are people I actually know wanted to come along, but were afraid to come along because they didn't want to upset members of church groups, which is, what year are we in now? 2018, is it? I thought I'd gone back in time like Outlander then for about 200 or 300 years or something, but there you go. Anyway, I digress. I turned up, didn't know what to expect, but I felt I was supposed to be there, and I thought, well, I'll play it by ear. So I'm hanging around for ages. It started late because the other lady running it had to go and pick the lady up who was doing the talk. And they finally arrived. And like I say, the energy in there was lovely. And the lady came in who was absolutely lovely. And she came in with another member of the public. And we all sat down, and the lady that came in she was an absolute joy and inspiration. But she'd been through a lot herself. She actually came in on like crutches things, you know, like a Zimmer frame thing. She'd fallen over and bashed her head in. So she came in, and her energy was phenomenal, and she was really lovely, and she was such a gem. She was full of wisdom. She was a spiritual teacher, an elderly spiritual teacher. She was qualified in Chinese medicine. She knew all about herbology. She knew all about the meridians. She knew all about healing. She was psychic. She was a medium. She was a born spiritual teacher. And I thought she was going to be teaching and sharing probably for about half an hour or an hour or something. You know, she was going to have a hot cup of tea and go. About 3 hours, 20 minutes later, it was like having a masterclass. This lady was absolutely wonderful. Everything the lady said, I had those questions in my head before I got there. They were questions on health, nutrition, well-being. She addressed all of them without me having to ask them. She didn't know me at all, but as soon as she walked in the first couple of minutes, she said things about me. So in terms of the work that I'm doing, actually, and huge synchronicity there. She just nailed it all straight off, which made me smile. I thought she was wonderful. And in the break, while I was sitting there talking and she was having something to drink, I told her where I'm now living, because I've only just moved in the last 5 weeks. So I'm in the same county that I've been in for the last few years, but I've moved within that county for the time being to a much better place. And I happened to mention the village that I'm living in. And she said, oh, I used to live there, whereabouts? So I told her the address of where I'm living in. And she told me that's where I used to live before I moved to where I live now. She used to live, that spiritual teacher, in my exact house that I've been living in for 5 weeks now. She lived here for 9 years. She used to live and work from here as a spiritual teacher, and she used the bedroom that I now sleep in as a healing sanctuary. Now, it makes me smile because you couldn't make that up. So I have moved effectively into a healing sanctuary where another spiritual teacher has lived for many years and worked from. Now, I never logically knew that when I came to the place here, but I knew it was important for me to come here, and I knew it was the right thing to do. And what were the odds that I would go along to that event and hardly anyone was there? The woman was absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to go and see her privately and, stay connected with her. She was so pleased that we come along. In fact, she did cry, but not with sadness, cry because she said she so wanted to share her knowledge and wisdom while she was still around, basically alive to do so. And she wanted to share it with people that could pass it on to others. So she was really touched. She was wonderful. And I will see her privately, and I will go along, and I'll probably do some treatment on her too. But what were the odds? I mean, I couldn't make that up. Now, there were other synchronicities, which I won't go into because I don't think it would be the right thing to do at the moment. And not synchronicities with that lady, but synchronicities to do with other people that may come along, because it's going to be held every 4 weeks, this thing, that I was picking up on before their arrival, so they didn't come this time. The great thing is that while this lady is able to do this, she's going to do it. And it's like, she works the way I work. So it's very much, she doesn't plan anything. She just comes in, does it. What comes through is appropriate for the people in the room at the time. And if she gets tired or she doesn't want to do it, I'll do my thing, you know, whatever that is. There was no charge. It was all completely free, which was amazing. Just incredible. Now, I'm bringing this up because these extraordinary things do happen. And sometimes you can go through weeks, months of synchronicity, boom, 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 one thing after another. And I've had so much synchronicity in my life. I could fill a book with it. I've had conversations with friends and come out with things word for word. And then an hour later, we've put the television on or something. And then word for word, what I've said has just come out of left field on a television program, for example. Or I've sat again with friends in a cafe. I've been saying something and I've been saying particular words, and I will just go to say the next thing, and then the music will come on in the cafe and it will say the sentence that is coming out my mouth at the same time as I'm saying it. And it's not my imagination. They're nearly falling off their seat with their mouth wide open. I've had these things so many times, I've lost count. It's happened so many times over the years, especially through the medium of music or sound, music interacting as the synchronicity with the synchronicity. I've had so many witnesses to them and they've been involved in it as well. It doesn't all center around me. It's been part of their synchronicity as well. And what it does, it doesn't freak any of us out. It makes us laugh. It makes us smile. It makes us feel with joy. It makes us light up, because it's almost like we realize we're interplaying with something bigger than us. Whether you can say you're interplaying with God or source or a river of consciousness or the river of creation, that you're creating it, that you're dancing with that reality and consciousness, and it's responding to you and you're responding to it. I think it's a combination of all of those things. What it does is it fills you with hope, and it fills you with joy, and it fills you with excitement, and it makes you feel like a child again when that happens, because it is amazing, and you're not bending it to fit what you want it to fit. It just seems to happen, and it seems to happen at its best, really, when you're not trying to force anything like that. Yes, I do truly feel that by playing along with that dance, that creation dance, and playing along with the flow and playing along with life consciousness, that you have a huge effect on the outcomes of that and what you experience and what you don't. But that particular one that I'm referencing here, I didn't have any inkling beforehand. I did know, I felt really strongly it was important for me to go there, and that's all I knew. I didn't know anything else about it. I knew I had to be there, but I didn't logically think I am going to go along, I'm going to meet a wonderful spiritual teacher, this is going to be a big shift for me personally and professionally, and wonderful for her, and it's going to be able to help people. And it turns out she's a spiritual teacher that lived where I live, and I'm living in a healing sanctuary. I didn't know any of that before I walked through the door. All I got is, oh yeah, I need to be there. It was important for me to be there, and I felt quite excited about it. So it is wonderful, and it is wonderful when these things happen, and they happen in a number of ways. I know different people have different signs and different sync things. For me, it's nearly always, let's say, validated through the medium of television or music or sound. That kind of way, really. It's quite spot on. It's not something ambiguous like seeing loads of a particular bird or loads of angel feathers, white feathers, although I've had all of that in my life. It's much more tangible than that. It's a direct interplay of what's happening in that moment with me. And I mean, many years over the years when I've run workshops, I've had so many witnesses to this that have been in there at the time. You know, I'll be saying something, there'll be some music on, and I might say it's all in, and nothing's rehearsed, it's all in the moment, and it will come out of my mouth, you know, something I've been saying about, you know, I'm just going to use this as an example, entering an infinite silence. The music that's playing stops in the workshop, only stops during the time that I'm talking about infinite silence, then goes on its own again. Now, you might listen to this and go, oh, that's freaky. I don't find it freaky at all. I find it completely natural. The people in the workshop didn't find it freaky. They found it wonderful. And they went out smiling and happy. It's not anything like that. Even though it might sound a bit woo-woo, I don't consider that woo-woo at all. I just find it fascinating. From a scientific point of view, I find it fascinating. There is an interaction, an interplay of the energy and consciousness. And I feel when you are in that particular flow, there are representations of that around you in sound, in numerical form, in symbols, through whatever media or medium consciousness and synchronicity can use to validate something, to give you some reassurance on something, some hope, to reassure you're back in the flow. All of those things really, and also to give you a nudge that you are kind of playing in the dance of life force and are, let's say, in the heart of that much more than you realize, or we realize, when we're caught up in the everyday life, and everyday life which is geared very much around forcing us into ways of existing that are all around survival. So we don't get to play as the beings and the consciousness that we are. We get to be pretty much downtrodden in those survival realities, which are very uncomfortable, and it means a lot of us go a lifetime without ever really hitting that mark, hitting the spot, so to speak. On that note, I will love you and leave you. As always, thanks for watching the channel. Thanks for subscribing to the channel, and thanks for supporting me as the channel in all the ways that you do. I'm not quite sure when I'll be on camera again. It might not be now till after Easter. We'll see. I've got a busy week. So it's Easter in a few days. So it might not be till after then, but we'll see. I didn't plan to do these tonight, so we'll see how it goes. Basically, I'm going with the flow, just like the video says. Take care. Bye.